So I said first, access to its market. But there is a second instrument inside what I call the community of values, and the access of to its institution, the accession to the Union. Today, this was already mentioned with reference to the environment policy of Poland. It is for the Union, before you can join the Union, a state, a government has to respect certain principles that were put down in the Declaration of Copenhagen, criteria of Copenhagen. And this is, again, a way to provoke changes in the domestic policy of the countries, which is very powerful, which has been a very great impact, because countries which want to be full member of the Union have to comply not only with economic conditions, for instance, have an economy which is sufficient to stay in competition with other countries of the Union, but also political conditions. So you have to be a democracy. I would say the twin brothers of this construction are democracy and market. Democracy means that countries which want to be part of the Union have to be to have, for instance, separation of the powers or independency of the judiciary. It's a very careful examination before being accepted in the Union. You know, the examination lasts for years. It's very, I would say, very severe, sometimes even excessive for those countries which want to join. But this is the rule, and this is, as I said, the way how the Union can try to impose its values inside the border of the Union and outside of it. Let's say the third element, which always I see this looking at the capacity of the Union of favoring the global governance, is the primacy of the law. The Union has this element that the law is the supreme instrument in the relations between the state. It achieves what happens inside in a single nation state, the fact that you have to comply with certain rules. If you don't do it, there is an instance of which you can apply. And so you don't need, in fact, any military force to have the observance of those rules. This is what I would call this the sovereignty of the norm, of the rule, which is, of course, a revolution in international relations, because even the distinction between domestic policy and international policy is abolished, of course, in the areas in which the Union had its competence. And this is an extremely dynamic element, the power of the law. The Union has no army to impose its own will inside the borders of the European construction, but this is this principle, this strength of the rule, which is is practically enforced on the basis of two principles: the principle of the superiority of the law of the Union over the law of the single states, and the so-called direct effectors. So the decision of the Union are binding directly for the citizen of the single state and not through the international mechanism. So you can see how, again, this is a revolution. And how can this affect the international governance? Well, first of all, of course, inside the Union creates a new substance in the relations between the states, but also this is a powerful factor in imposing in the Union, in the international community at large, the primacy of the law over the force. The Union is the major factor in imposing in easing the success, the efficiency of the great international institutions, starting from with the United Nations, and also is one of the Union is one of the promoters of a further institutionalization of the international community. Let me only recall the criminal court, how this was an initiative which the Union brought forward, and it's changed or changes the substance of international relations. The third point is what I would say, the use of force, how the Union can deal with force. This has been mentioned today at the beginning, I think, by Professor Gromyko, whether the Union is not an unarmed prophet which has no means, in fact, to impose outside of its own area, in which the rule of law is sufficient to have compliance with its principle. But how does the Union act outside? It's in fact, the single countries have no powerful armies, but the Union in itself is still beginning in this area. It's still at, there is, of course, with the new treaties, the treaties of Lisbon, which has not been ratified, there is an attempt to create a more powerful military instrument, but this has happened so far inside NATO, and the Union has been part of NATO and will remain for a long time part of NATO, but with a more clear individuality inside the NATO and with mechanisms which would allow to the Union to detach when it's possible, needed, to act also alone without the support of NATO, not against NATO, but in an autonomous way. This process is a process tied, in my view, essentially to the role of France. France is, we have to wait how the policy of France is going to evolve. But this is, well, those are the elements through which the Union, and I have, I think, my 15 minutes, only to conclude, how the Union then contribute to the global governance. Well, first of all, as I said, in the sense that it reduces the anarchical character of international society. It enhances the room for the law, for the rules, instead of the naked force. And then it makes also the behavior of the government more predictable. Each government continue, of course, to defend its own interests, to define its own interests, but it's going to do this inside a framework of mutually accepted rules and principles. And so this is, in my view, the great contribution which the Union is going to do to make in the future as an example and as a promoter of a more stable and we hope also a richer international community. Thank you.